Hello friends, vanakkam. Welcome to Whiteboard Learning with me. This is non-stop online class. So today we discuss the topic anatomy of human brain. Human brain is a central body organ of human nervous system. This is one of the internal human body organ. Then anatomy of human brain. First point, the study of the anatomy of brain is neuroanatomy, while the study of its function is neuroscience. Second point, numerous techniques are used to study the brain. So that is second point, specimens from other animals which may be examined microscopically have traditionally provided much information. Then medical imaging technologies such as functional neuroimaging and electroencephalography or EEG recordings are important in studying the brain. Then fourth point, the medical history of people with brain injury has provided insight into the function of each part of the brain. Fifth point, brain research has evolved over time with philosophical, experimental and theoretical phase. An emerging phase may be to stimulate brain activity. Then next paragraph. In culture, the philosophy of mind has for centuries attempted to address the question of the nature of consciousness and the mind-body problems. Then 19th century. Then another point, 1942. So, the pseudoscience, this is not actually science, but this act science called pseudoscience of phrenology attempted to localize personality attributes to regions of the cortex in the 19th century. Then, in science fiction, brain transplants are imagined in tales such as the 1942 Donovan's brain. See, 1942 Donovan's brain. So, this is the important diagram depicting the main subdivisions of the embryonic vertebrate brain. This is main subdivisions. 3 subdivisions. First subdivision, major subdivision named prosencephalon. Second subdivision named mesencephalon. Third subdivision named rhombencephalon. These regions will later differentiate into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain structures. See, prosencephalon is forebrain, mesencephalon named midbrain, rhombencephalon is hindbrain. Then prosencephalon is divided into 2 regions. This is telencephalon and this is diencephalon. So this is subdivisions. Then this is the mesencephalons. Then rhombencephalon subdivisions are metencephalon and myelencephalon. This is spinal cord. Metencephalon is an important region. It is the embryonic part of the hindbrain that differentiate into the pons and cerebellum. It contains a portion of fourth ventricle and trigeminal nerves, abducens nerves, facial nerves, and portion of vestibulocochlear nerve. Then this is the portion of spinal cord. Then human brain. Human brain is central organ of human nervous system, and with the spinal cord makes up the central nervous system. The brain consists of cerebrum, brainstem, and cerebellum. This is the 3D view of human brain. The major portion of the brain named cerebrum. This is cerebellum, and this is spinal cord. This is three portions are very important portions. Then all body activities are controlled by human brain, such as processing, integrating, and coordinating the information it receives from the sense organs and making decisions as to instructions sent to the rest of the body. Then final point, the brain is contained in protected by skull bones of the head. In head portion inside it having skull. This skull is protected our human brain. See, this is the human brain. Cerebrum, cerebellum, spinal cord. This is the structure of human brain. This is protected by head portion of human skull. In between human brain and skull having a fluid named cerebrospinal fluid. See, the brain is protected by skull, suspended in cerebrospinal fluid, and isolated from the bloodstream by the blood-brain barrier. So first, this is anatomy of human brain having 8 points. Next, the diagram. Differentiate forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain in vertebrate's brain. Then human brain having this is human nervous system, central organ of human nervous system. Then second point, it controls the activities of body. Then it's having three main important regions: cerebrum, brainstem, and cerebellum, and it is contained and protected by skull. So this is the 3D view of human brain. So then human brain protected by skull, suspended in cerebrospinal fluid. So what is cerebrospinal fluid? See, this is the cerebrospinal fluid. Is a clear, colorless, transcellular fluid that circulates around the brain in subarachnoid space. It located in subarachnoid space in ventricular system and in central canal of the spinal cord. See, and is isolated from bloodstream by blood and blood-brain barriers. The brain is protected by skull, suspended cerebrospinal fluid, and isolated from the bloodstream by the blood-brain barrier. Second point, however, the brain is still susceptible to damage, disease, and infections. Damage can caused by trauma, meaning loss of blood supply or stroke. Then the brain is susceptible to degenerative disorders. Three main disorders are: this is Parkinson disease, this is Alzheimer's disease, this is sclerosis disease. So the brain is susceptible to the degenerative disorders such as Parkinson's disease. Dementias include Alzheimer's disease and multiple sclerosis. Then fourth point, psychiatric condition. So, including schizophrenia and clinical depression are thought to be associated or thought to be associated with brain disinfection. Then fifth point, the brain can also be the site of tumors, both benign and malignant. These mostly originate from other sites in the body. See, this is the skull and human brain. Next, cerebrospinal fluid, clear, colorless, transcellular fluid around the brain in subarachnoid space in the ventricular system in central canal of the spinal cord. Next, this is the structure of human brain. Structure of human brain having three main regions: cerebrum, cerebellum, and spinal cord. The major portion cerebrum and cerebellum and spinal cord. These three portion important portions, and in between it having thalamus and also hypothalamus. It is elongated and having gray area, central gray area of midbrain, and it enlarged to form pons and to form spinal cord. Then this is auditory cortex. Then two amygdalas are, this is basolateral amygdala and this is central amygdala. This is pons and this is spinal cord. This is medulla portion. This is the structure of human brain. Then the cerebrum. Cerebrum is the largest part of human brain. It's divided into two cerebral hemispheres. See, this is the cerebral lobes. This is having two cerebral hemisphere. This is right portion of cerebral hemisphere and this is left cerebral hemisphere. It's connected by commissure nerve tract and major portion connected by corpus callosum. So it's having lobes. This pink lobe named frontal lobe. This green lobes named parietal lobe. This is blue lobe, occipital lobe. So see, divided into cerebrum, divided into two cerebral hemisphere. The cerebral cortex is an outer layer of gray matter covering the core of white matter. The next point, the cortex split into neocortex and allocortex. This neocortex is made up of 6 neuronal layers. This allocortex is made up of 3 or 4 neuronal layers. Then each hemisphere is conventionally divided into 4 lobes named frontal lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe and occipital lobes. See, this is frontal lobe, this is parietal lobe, this is occipital lobe, this is temporal lobe. So these are the lobes of brain hemispheres, cerebral hemispheres. So frontal, temporal, parietal and occipital. Then the frontal lobe is associated with executive functions including self-control, planning, reasoning and abstract thoughts. These are controlled by frontal lobe. Then while occipital lobe is dedicated to vision. Then with each lobe's cortical areas are associated with specific functions such as sensory, motor and association regions. Although the left and the right hemispheres are broadly similar in space and function, some functions are associated with one side, such as language in left, visual spatial ability in right. See, visual spatial ability in right and languages in left side. Final, the hemisphere are connected by commissure nerve tract. The largest being corpus callosum, commissure nerve tracts and corpus callosum. Next, the cerebellum is divided into anterior lobe and posterior lobe, and the flacculonodular lobe. The anterior and posterior lobes are connected in the middle by the vermis. Compared to the cerebral cortex, the cerebellum has a much thinner outer cortex that is narrowly furrowed into numerous curved transverse fissures. Viewed from underneath between the two lobes is the third lobe, the flacculonodular lobe. Third lobe, flacculonodular lobe. Anterior lobe, posterior lobe and flacculonodular lobe. Then the cerebellum rests at the back of the cranial cavity, lying beneath the occipital lobe and separated from these by the cerebellar tentorium. Cerebellar tentorium, a sheet of fiber. Then next, it connected to the midbrain, the brain stem by the superior cerebellar pedicles, cerebellar pedicles superior. Then to the pons by the middle cerebellar pedicles, superior cerebral pedicles and middle cerebral pedicles and inferior cerebellar pedicles, and to the medulla by the inferior cerebellar peduncles. The cerebellum consists of an inner medulla of white matter and an outer cortex of richly folded grey matter. So, cerebellum consists of inner medulla, white matter, and outer cortex, grey matter. See, medulla is white, cortex is grey. Then, the cerebellum's anterior and posterior lobes appear to play a role in coordination and smoothing of complex motor movements, and the flacculonodular lobe in the maintenance of balance, although debate exists as to its cognitive, behavioral and motor functions. See the diagram of lobes: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, temporal lobe. This is the cerebellum. This is cingulate gyrus. Then The cerebrum is connected by the brain stem to the spinal cord. The brain stem consists of midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. Then second point, the cerebellum is connected to brainstem by pair of tracts. Within the cerebrum is the ventricular system consisting of 4 interconnected ventricles in which cerebrospinal fluid is protected and circulated. Then third point is important point. Underneath the cerebral cortex are several important structures including thalamus and epithalamus, the pineal gland, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the subthalamus. The limbic structures including the amygdala and the hippocampus, the clustrum, the various nuclei of the basal ganglia, the basal forebrain structures are the 3 circumventricular organs. Then the cells of the brain include neuron and supportive glial cells. There are more than 86 billion neurons in brain and more or less equal number of other cells. See, 86 billion neurons. It is important. Then fifth point, brain activity is made possible by the interconnections of neurons and their release of neurotransmitters in response to nerve impulse. Neurons connected to form, see, neural pathways, neural circuits, and elaborate network systems. The whole circulatory is driven by the process of neurotransmission. So this is very important page. Then next, epithalamus and subthalamus. So epithalamus and subthalamus in diencephalon region. So these located in diencephalon region. Epithalamus is nothing but the thalamus. Then subthalamus is hypothalamus. This is epithalamus or thalamus. The subthalamus is hypothalamus. So this is the location of thalamus and hypothalamus. This is frontal lobe, olfactory lobe, amygdala, and hippocampus. This is the portion of hippocampus. This is amygdala. This is olfactory bulb, and this is frontal lobe. Then the thalamus function is to transfer. So functions of thalamus and hypothalamus. We see in this page the functions of thalamus and hypothalamus. First one, the thalamus function is to transfer the information it collects from other parts the brain to the part called the cerebral cortex, which is the segment of the brain closest to the surface, consists of gray matter that then analyze the information and sends instructions back. Then on the other hand, the hypothalamus has very close connection to the pituitary gland that is located near it. The pituitary gland can be considered the most important gland in human body since it sends hormones to all other glands, indicating when they should start or stop secreting other hormones. So, this is the function of thalamus and hypothalamus, and also difference between thalamus and hypothalamus. Next, brain stem. This is final portion, end portion of brain. So, brain stem lies beneath the cerebrum and consists of midbrain, pons, and medulla. Excuse me. It lies in the back part of the skull, resting on the part of the base known as the clavus and ends at the foramen magnum, a large opening in the occipital bone. The brain stem continues below this as the spinal cord protected by the vertebral column. So, this is something about brain stem. Then, this is the diagrammatic view of human brain. We recollect all the parts of human brains are cerebrum, cerebellum, spinal cord, thalamus and also hypothalamus, visual cortex, central gray area of midbrain, pons, medulla, auditory cortex, basolateral amygdala and central amygdala. Then we discuss the diseases of human brain. Neurodegenerative diseases result in progressive damage to different parts of the brain functions and worsen with age. Then common examples include dementia such as Alzheimer's disease, alcoholic dementia or vascular dementia, then Parkinson's disease and other rarer infectious, genetic or metabolic causes such as Huntington's disease, motor neuron disease, HIV dementia, syphilis-related dementia, and Wilson's disease. These are the some brain diseases. Then brain-related disorders are tumor or cancer, mental disorders, epilepsy, congenital diseases, strokes is also brain disorder and also brain death and so on. The size of the brain and a person's intelligence are not strongly related. Studies tend to indicate small to moderate correlations averaging around 0.3 to 0.4 between brain volume and IQ. Then the most consistent associations are observed with the frontal, temporal and parietal lobes, the hippocampi and the cerebellum. But these only account for a relatively small amount of variance in IQ, which itself has only a partial relationship to general intelligence and real world performance. So, we recollect all anatomy of human brain. This is introduction of anatomy of human brain having 8 points. Next, diagram depicting differentiate forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. This is metencephalon. So this is human brain. Introduction, human brain, parts of human brain, activities of human brain. Human brain, this is the 3D view of human brain. Next, brain protected by skull. This page is having 5 points. This is the structure of skull and cerebrospinal fluid, and this is the structure of human brain, and this is cerebrum, cortex and lobes of human brain. This is the cerebral hemisphere structure, and this is cerebellum, about cerebellum and brain stem. This is the structure of lobes of the brain, and this is cerebrum, cerebellum, cerebral cortex and 86 billion neurons and activities of brain, and this is the thalamus and hypothalamus locations, and this is about thalamus and hypothalamus are differentiate between thalamus and hypothalamus are functions of thalamus and hypothalamus. This is brain stem, and this is diagrammatic view of human brain, and this is diseases of human brain, brain related disorders. Then this is size of the brain. Finally, we discuss the weight of human brain. Do you know the weight of human brain? See, the adult human brain weighs on average about 1.2 to 1.4 kilograms, that is 2.6 to 3.1 lb, which is about 2% of total body weight. So, with a volume around 1260 cm cube in men and 1130 cm cube in women. Next, do you know the standard reference range for human brain? So, this paragraph is that there is substantial individual variation with the standard reference range for men. This is men and this is women. So, for men being 1180 to 1620 grams, that is 2.60 to 3.57 lb. And for women 1030 to 1400 grams, that is 2.27 to 3.09 lb. So, this is the end of the video. This is the anatomy of human brain. Thank you.